Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going on an architectural tour, but not of a building. Nope. We're going to build a flowering plant, piece by piece, right from the ground up, to really get into its secret life.
I mean, have you ever really stopped to think about it? When you look at a flower, a plant, a tree, what are you actually looking at? How does it stay upright? How does it feed itself? And how does it make sure there's a next generation? These aren't just simple questions, you know. They're answers to some seriously complex engineering problems that nature has been perfecting for millions of years.
So, to build our plant, we're going to need our main components. And let's not think of this as some boring agenda. No, this is our cast of characters, and each one has a vital role to play in this incredible story of survival. We've got the hidden foundation, the central skyscraper, the solar-powered factories, and of course, the grand finale, the reproductive masterpiece. Okay, before we start digging and planting, we need to understand the language, right? The architectural terms. So let's take a quick look at the blueprint. All right, if there's one word you're going to want to remember from our tour today, it's this one, morphology. It sounds a bit technical, but all it really means is the study of a plant's shape and structure. Think of it as the physical blueprint that decides how every single part is formed and where it goes. And it all comes down to one thing, survival. All right, blueprint understood. Let's get our hands dirty and start building. Every amazing structure needs a solid foundation, and for our plant, that whole process starts in the world just beneath our feet.
You know, it's easy to think of the root system as just a straw, but it is so much more than that. It's a powerful anchor, digging in deep to hold the entire plant steady against wind, rain, you name it. And at the exact same time, it's running this super sophisticated mining operation, constantly exploring the soil to pull up the water and minerals that are literally the plant's life.
But here's the cool part. Roots aren't a one-size-fits-all deal. They're master adapters. Just look at these. A carrot? That root has turned itself into a pantry, just storing up food. Mangroves stuck in swampy, waterlogged soil? No problem. Their roots grow upwards just to get some oxygen. And a giant banyan tree? Its roots become these massive prop pillars to support all that weight. Every single one is a genius solution to a specific problem. Okay, we're moving above ground now, and we're looking at the stem. I want you to think of it in two ways. First, it's the plant's skyscraper, right? It's reaching for that precious sunlight. But it's also the internal superhighway, this incredibly complex transport network that's moving resources exactly where they need to go. So how does this highway actually work? Well, it's made of these specialized tissues, basically groups of cells all working together. First on our list is the xylem. The easiest way to think about it is as the plant's plumbing system. It's a bundle of pipes that pulls water and minerals up from the roots. It's a one-way trip, straight to the leaves. And then we have the phloem. So if xylem is the water pipe, the phloem is like the food elevator or maybe a delivery service. It takes all those sugars that are made in the leaves and delivers them wherever the plant needs a boost of energy, down to the roots for storage or up to the flowers to help them grow. And here's the simplest way to remember the difference. It's a perfectly coordinated system, really. Xylem is a one-way street going up, bringing in the raw materials, water, and minerals. The phloem then distributes the finished product, that sugary food, wherever it's needed. One brings in the supplies, the other delivers the goods. Simple as that. And just like the roots, stems are incredible innovators. They adapt. A bougainvillea stem, for example, makes this really clever trade-off. Instead of growing a whole new branch, it'll create a super sharp thorn for defense. And that potato you had for dinner, that's not a root. It's actually a modified underground stem called a tuber, and its whole job is to store food. In every case, you see how the form is perfectly designed for the function. Okay, so we've got our foundation in the ground and our transport system all set up. What's next? We need the power plant. And that brings us to the leaf. This is where the real magic happens, turning pure sunlight into usable energy. So if we could zoom way in, inside this tiny green factory, we'd see it's organized into specialized departments. The epidermis, that's the outer wall, and it has these little gates called stomata that let gases in and out. Then there's the mesophyll, that's the main factory floor, just packed with cells doing the hard work of photosynthesis. And finally, you have the vascular bundles, what we see as the veins in the leaf. These are the shipping ducts, with the xylem bringing in water and the phloem shipping out all that freshly made sugar. All right, our plant is built. It's feeding itself, it's thriving.
But what's the ultimate goal of any living thing? To create the next generation. And that brings us to our final, and let's be honest, most beautiful component, the plant's reproductive masterpiece. Now, plants don't just throw flowers out there randomly. Oh no, there's a very deliberate design to how they're arranged, and the fancy word for that is inflorescence. You're basically looking at the two main strategies here. In racemose, like you see in mustard, the main stem just keeps on growing and popping out new flowers, so the youngest ones are always at the top. But in cimose, like jasmine, the main stem actually ends in a flower, which means the oldest flower is right at the top. Cool, right?
And every single flower is a little marvel of engineering, usually built in 4 layers, or whorls as they're called. Let's go from the outside in. First, you have the calyx. Those are the green leafy bits, the sepals, that protect the bud. Then you get the corolla, the bright, colorful petals whose main job is to shout, "Hey, pollinators, over here." And right at the center, you've got the androecium and the gynoecium, the male and female parts, all ready to create a new seed.
So after all that work, after successful pollination, we get a fruit. But here's a fun fact. Botanically speaking, not all fruits are the same. A true fruit, like a mango, develops only from the flower's ovary. That's it. But a false fruit, like an apple, is made from the ovary plus other parts of the flower that swell up and become that fleshy, juicy part we love to eat. It's a really interesting distinction. And this just puts that whole elegant cycle together perfectly. It all starts with the flower. That allows for fertilization. That event triggers the ovary to grow and mature into a fruit. And the fruit's job? To protect and help spread the real prize inside, the fertilized ovule, which is now a seed that contains the complete blueprint for the next generation. It's just a perfect system.
So let's do a super quick recap of the plant's playbook. What have we learned? First, morphology is everything. Plants are constantly adapting their shape, their roots, stems, and leaves to survive. Second, they have this amazing internal superhighway made of specialized tissues, the xylem and phloem, moving water and food around. Third, the internal structure of every single part is perfectly designed for its job. And finally, the whole system, the whole shebang, is geared towards one ultimate goal, making more plants for the future.
I mean, from its hidden roots to its beautiful flowers, the flowering plant is just an absolute masterpiece of biological design. Which really leaves us with one final thought to chew on. If a seemingly simple plant can engineer itself so perfectly to survive and thrive, what can we, as human designers, architects, and engineers, learn from its blueprint?